Good afternoon or evening, everybody. I'm never sure if this is late afternoon or early evening. We'll just keep the slide on for a few seconds just to make sure that everyone that is joining has managed to log on and see the slide. And so we'll come back to you in just a few seconds. We're just letting everyone, once the slide goes, we'll be able to start. So if you just hold with us. Well, the slide's gone, so I presume everyone can hear everyone that's joined this webinar. So what I'd really like to do is to welcome everybody to the Neighbourhood Watch and ERA webinar. And the title of this particular webinar is, what does smart security mean for you? So if that's what you think you've joined, you're in the right place. If you think you've joined something else, you're in the wrong place. But this is the ERA and Neighbourhood Watch webinar. So I'd really like to welcome everybody. I thank you for your time. I'm John Hayward-Cripps. I'm the Chief Executive of Neighbourhood Watch Network. And as you may or may not know, we have something in the order of 2.3 million members across England and Wales and about 90,000 coordinators. And our focus in Neighbourhood Watch has always been around crime prevention and community, hence this webinar this evening. We've been producing a series of webinars based on cybersecurity, previous ones, pet theft, county lines, ASB and scams. Now, I'm really delighted that ERA, who are our primary smart security sponsor, is supporting and leading this webinar this evening. As you'll be aware, ERA is one of the leading home security companies in the UK, having been producing locks and security devices since 1838. ERA still produce locks and hardware, but now also a leader in smart security across the UK. As I said, I'm really delighted that they support Neighbourhood Watch and are committed both to individual and community safety and security. I'm just going to mention a bit of webinar etiquette. I mean, it was on the slide, but if everyone can keep all their microphones muted and their cameras off, that will reduce any lag and any interference in the webinar. Any questions or comments, please put them in the chat function. I can see that loads of people, Richard, Mara, Peter, Kevin, I won't go through everybody, but has already posted on that, so that's great. So what we'll do, if you have any questions or thoughts or comments, put them into the chat function, which we'll be monitoring, and we'll make sure that any questions are answered at the end. There'll be lots of time for comment on that. So without further ado, I'd really like to introduce Sumier. Sumier Foster-Shah, who is with us from ERA, has worked in smart home security for over 6 years. And while that might not seem an epically long time, you have to really remember that smart security hasn't been around for that long. So Sumier has been in it from the beginning. The last 3 years he's worked for ERA, and Sumier provides training and support to all ERA's customers and works alongside the wider ERA team to introduce improved features into the existing range and launch new smart products and accessories. On a day-to-day basis, you'll find Sumier supporting the technical team of experts at ERA to provide a first-class service to ERA customers. So good evening, Sumier. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks very much, John, and good evening, everyone.
So the structure of this evening's webinar will be a kind of chat between Sumier and I. If people, as I say, have got questions, please put them in the chat function. But first of all, just to get us going, Sumier, I mean, you've come from a company of ERA with over 180 years experience in securing homes. Can you just give us a kind of introduction to what smart security is?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, smart security, as in the world of the internet, is taking on traditional security devices. You put the word smart before it, and what you're doing is you are making it internet connected. So rather than having traditional security where you have a keypad in your home, it's a siren only system. You leave the property. If your alarm's triggered, for example, all that happens is the siren goes off and you're relying on your neighbors to contact the emergency services for you if it's needed. What smart security does is it allows you to control your security using your smartphone, so either your Android phones or your iPhone. So if your alarm is triggered, you would be notified via your phone to let you know that your alarm's been triggered, and it allows you to see what's happening and call the police for yourselves. In addition to that, you can add internet security cameras to that as well. So if you aren't at home, you can then also look at the cameras via the internet to see what's happening around your property.
That's great. So there are some quite significant differences between a traditional alarm and a whole smart security system, because as you say, a traditional alarm is just an alarm, but there's a whole set of products and various things as part of a smart security system. The alarm would just be one part, would it not?
That's correct. So what's happened now is as the world is moving more to a connected society, more digital, what we call traditional analog systems are just being, you know, turned off really. So where you had traditional alarm systems which would have connected through your traditional phone line, that's being replaced by alarm systems that will be connected to your internet connection and allows that to connect to a platform which allows you to control it from wherever you've got an internet connection. So if you're sitting on the beach in Cyprus and something happens, you can actually connect to your home network and see what's going on. If you are at work and someone has entered your property, you would be notified about it straight away. What it also allows us to do is it removes the middleman. So there's a number of services that are out there now, not just from ourselves at ERA, but there's also the likes of SimpliSafe, Verisure, ADT, Yale, Ring, and also Ajax Security, plus other companies out there that all provide systems that are either installed by yourselves or are installed by professionals. But what it does at the end of the day is it puts the homeowner and the other people that live at that property control of the alarm system.
Okay, so does that mean that to have a smart security, you would obviously need to be connected to the internet at home, and to be able to access it, you need to have Wi-Fi or some sort of internet access wherever you are as well?
You would, and it depends on what the company does ourselves. So with ourselves, we have our ERA Protect alarm system. What we've done primarily with that is it does connect. The alarm hub does connect to your internet router. What we do have with that system, though, is everyone will ask, well, what happens if your internet goes down? What we've built into our alarm system is a roaming SIM card. So what happens is if the internet does become unavailable, as long as you've got a subscription on our system, that will activate the SIM card and it will keep that SIM card to connect your alarm system with our platform, which means that it can still communicate with your mobile device to let you know that your alarm or your cameras have been triggered on motion, or someone's broken in.
Okay, yeah, that's really helpful. So, what are the available kind of smart security accessories, and how do you think they improve home security?
So there's a number of them. So as I mentioned before, with traditional security, normally you would have a sensor on your front door, a sensor on your back door, and you would also have some movement sensors, but they would have all had to be wired in. With the smart security solutions that are available now, those particular sensors are now what we call battery operated and wireless. So what they'll do is you can actually put them similar sensors. So you have your door sensors or your window sensors. So if someone came through your door or through the window and they broke that particular sensor, it would communicate with the alarm. And you also have your movement sensors. But as technology has improved as well, what we're finding now, and what we're looking into, is you would also bring other home security devices into that portfolio. So you would look at smart smoke alarms, you would look at leak detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. So these are all the additional sensors that you can bring in that would also provide a further protection in your home system.
Okay, yeah, that's really helpful, because as you know, Sumier, Neighbourhood Watch, we're very keen, and certainly because of the data and the feedback around keeping houses safe, and we have brought in and advertised very strongly the WIDE acronym in terms of windows, interiors, doors, and exterior. Are you able to go through what the different types of products that you may have in terms of for initially, say, for windows?
Yeah, so for windows, we have one what we call our door window sensor, access sensor. It's a two-part sensor. It's connected with a magnet connection. So you would literally put the large part of that sensor on your window frame or your door frame, and you have a smaller magnet connection which would go on the actual door or the actual opening part of the window. If your alarm is set and someone did come through your door or window, that sensor would break and it would communicate with the hub, which would then trigger the alarm, but then would also notify you to let you know that the alarm's been triggered. And because you name each individual sensor, it would also tell you which particular sensor has been broken. The other thing with our sensors as well, they have what we call tamper protection. So if someone ripped the sensor off the door, the window, or the wall, it would notify you of that as well.
Ah, okay, yeah, that's really helpful. And how about inside, in the interior of your house? What's available there?
So we've got two parts that you can do for the interior. So you've got you can have an indoor camera, which gives you the focal point where you can actually see what's happening inside of your property. Now, it doesn't have to mean that just because your alarm's been triggered, if you're at work and you've got pets or you've got someone looking after your children or anything like that, you can actually just log into that camera and just see what's going on. And with the indoor camera as well, it's got two-way audio. So if you wanted to, you can actually talk to the person on the other side and they can talk back to you. As in addition to that, sorry, is we also have our PIR motion sensor. So if someone has managed to get into the property without triggering the alarm with your door or window sensors, the PIR motion sensor would also pick them up, which is a pet-friendly motion sensor as well, which means, you know, if you've got small to medium-sized dogs, it wouldn't trigger the alarm, but obviously a larger person would.
That's really interesting because we have had some questions already come in terms of whether things will be triggered by pets, but that's really helpful to know that they can work with pets. Obviously, that if you've got unless you've got a human-sized pet, in that case, that's probably not a pet. But that's great.
The other thing where people will ask is what happens if someone sort of crawls along the floor? Because of the way our sensors are set up, it's based on a size and weight scenario. So even if someone did crawl along the floor thinking that they could trick the sensor, it would still trigger.
That makes sense. And how about on doors? I mean, I know this is kind of, in some ways, this is getting back into ERA's history that they've been securing doors for well over 100 years. But in terms of what you could have in terms of secure your front and back doors, what kind of products or systems are there for that?
So front and back doors, obviously you have your traditional door chains. So we've got a number of door chains that will be certified. But in addition to that, to work in conjunction with the smart alarm system, is you would have that access sensor, which can be, like I said before, can be put on your doors and windows. But it's sort of an all-in-one solution. But if you also wanted to have that additional bit of security, what you can also do is have your PIR sensor, if you wanted, facing your door. So that, again, if someone came through the door, the motion would still trigger the alarm as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, that I understand that. And how about outside? I mean, we know, as I mentioned, the WIDE acronym. So windows, interior lights inside, the doors, and exterior lights. I mean, what sort of exterior lights, are available and helpful that you can connect to your smart security system?
So there's a number of exterior safety protocols that we've got within our system. So on the ERA Protect system, we've got the external live siren as well as an external replica siren. So that acts as your visual deterrent straight away, and that has your comfort LEDs on there as well. In addition to that, we have a ERA Protect doorbell, which again, if someone presses that doorbell, it will notify you through your smartphone that someone's rung your doorbell. And that also acts as a live stream. So at any time, you can actually just look at the image coming from that camera and see what's going on. And because it is a smart doorbell, you can communicate with whoever may be by the door. We also have an outdoor camera with infrared night vision as well. So for low light and nighttime, it will record on motion detection. And we also have our floodlight camera. So the floodlight camera is in addition to what the traditional security lights would be like. So you would walk past the traditional security light, the light would come on. Our floodlight camera will have a light that comes on, but it will also record on motion detection. So it will record if someone approaches that camera, the car drives away from the drive, or some animals, it will pick up animals as well that do cross over.
Okay, yeah, that makes complete sense. Thank you. That's really helpful. So, in terms of the sort of products we have, I mean, how easy is installation of these? Because I mean, I know I can be completely candid or good depending on the time of the day, depending if I'm lucky or not. So, how easy is kind of installation?
I'll turn around and say they're quite straightforward in the sense of I have put them up myself. But I've worked within the industry for quite a while, so I'm just used to getting on with things. For most people that are good with a drill, have a ladder, things like that, it is a straightforward DIY project. Obviously conscious that there are a number of people that may not have ladders, may not be comfortable doing DIY where they've got to drill through walls. If you're a competent DIY person, you can probably put up a camera, the alarm system, probably within 45 minutes to an hour. And once you've actually installed them onto your property, it probably takes you another 20 minutes or so to actually set up the account. But because like I said before, because we know people maybe not comfortable doing that sort of DIY, we have got a number of ERA approved installers that would be able to come out to a property, give a survey, and would be able to quote a supply and fit for that as well.
Okay, so depending on what people fancy, if they're happy, as you say, confident to do that, that's something that they can do with ERA products. But equally, there is a range of approved practitioners who can come and do that. Because I think some people, even if they felt able to, might want someone kind of proper, if that makes sense, to come round and do it, so they know that it's set up. So there's both those options, which is helpful.
That's correct.
And I know sometimes we hear about how cameras need to be positioned to ensure in terms of data security and privacy, because I know that can be an issue. And I know there was a case in Thames Valley this year that ended up in court because of how. I mean, what are the kind of rules or issues or things we need to be aware of about that, Sumier?
So with regards to cameras, first thing to bearing in mind, if a camera is being used to protect your own property and it's not being focused on anybody else's property or a shared area, in the majority of those cases, that is fine. Where the article that you're referring to fell foul of GDPR and things like that is the camera in question was actually to do with a outdoor camera that was looking over a shared area. And the argument with that shared area was that the person who put the camera up didn't get any permission from the people that were also using that shared area. So if in the worst case scenarios, if you've got a camera that you can't stop looking at a shared area, what you should do in the first instance is have a conversation with the people that would be impacted with any of those third parties. And what you should do is come up with a written agreement that can be shared, and you should be open enough with that particular camera that if someone does request any video clips from it or anything like that, that you do give access to them, because ultimately that is what the GDPR regulations were brought in. It was there to protect anyone's privacy. Yeah,
and certainly we've heard from lots of Neighbourhood Watch coordinators and members where we would, as an organisation, I'm sure we would always advise people to chat to their neighbours anyway. And of course, if someone installs a camera and there is a bit of a bit of it is over a shared area or something, it will increase that person's security as well. So, if you're chatting and getting on with your neighbours and having those conversations, that should be quite straightforward. It makes me think of like party wall agreements when you're having a bit of DIY done in your house. I mean, it's not dissimilar, but you need to ask and get that sorted out.
Yeah, you always have to. And I think sometimes even when you've got a camera that is looking over your own property as well, but if someone does raise any concerns, there's nothing stopping you getting your phone, just showing them really quickly, because that's how easy it is. You can open your phone, look at the app, and you can actually show that person what that camera's looking at. So it is actually a very, very straightforward process.
Yeah, no, I think that's really clear. And I think it's one of those things you can always ask for advice. I think either from yourselves or from ourselves, if people are concerned about that, we'll be able to give them some kind of support to make sure that that's done well, and that if they're at all worried about that, because we certainly had a couple of questions about that. So that's really helpful, Sumier. Thank you. I mean, what could you tell us a bit about the security of the data and how to choose a trusted and secure system? Because I know some people will be concerned about that how secure those systems are.
Yeah. So for ourselves, obviously, we've been working in the security industry for a very long time, as you mentioned before. One of the things that the ERA Protect alarm system has, as well as the floodlight camera and the outdoor camera, is we were the first organisation in the UK that got the British Standards Institute's Internet of Things type mark. So what that means for ourselves is that our data has passed the thresholds that are set by the British Standards Institute. It means that from the point of transmission from the cameras or the alarm, the data is encrypted and it's secure, and it's proven with the BSI's tests that it couldn't be hacked. So they weren't able to obtain any of the data, they weren't able to jam any of that data, and that data is then kept securely on our platform. Where that's really important is there's a number of companies out there that are selling smart alarms, as you said yourself. But as I mentioned before, there's only two systems for the alarms that have got that BSI kite mark, and that's ourselves. And in our case, it's also the Yale alarm. All the other alarms that are available out there that are similarly priced are not with that kite mark. So that is,
I think that's
we've
quite
spent a
a
lot of
useful
time
thing.
getting that.
Yeah, we've had a couple of questions come in terms of kind of security and how to ensure that the data is safe. And I guess that's a really clear way that that's externally verified by, it's not by yourselves or anything else, from the British Standards Institute. That's really
And the
clear
other good thing
that
with
data
that,
is then secure.
Yeah, the other good thing with ours as well is we are audited on a regular basis by the British Standards Institute. So it's not a case of applying for the kite mark, passing those tests, and we've got it for that period. We have to pass the ongoing tests from them every year as well.
Yeah, which is really reassuring. Obviously, I just wanted to pick you up on one bit, and I guess this is because you work in the business. I just wanted, you used the phrase Internet of Things, and I know there'll probably be some people on the call that aren't completely sure what that means. If you could just give us a quick explanation of the Internet of Things, which is more complicated than it sounds, I think.
Yeah, so Internet of Things basically means any device that you have in your home, on your person, that uses the internet to communicate. So your iPhones, your Android smartphones, your smart thermostats that you might have in your home, which means that you can control the temperature without having to turn the traditional dial. Internet of Things also covers your smart televisions. So, streaming TVs and things like that, that is all covered by the Internet of Things, and they all have various communication methods to keep your data secure and make sure that they can't be hacked. There's been lots of news stories over the last few years where data has been compromised and people have been advised then to change their passwords and things like that. That applies to anything where you have personal data. It's important to take control of your own personal security, changing passwords every few months, just making sure that you're doing everything you can to keep one step ahead of people that unfortunately do have the ability to use for criminal means.
Yeah, because certainly, again, there's been a couple of questions that have come through on the chat around making sure that that burglars can't hack your Wi-Fi, and I think, as you've just said, around anything with the internet. I mean, that can include baby monitors these days that are using kind of Wi-Fi.
It does, yeah.
And I think, as you said, making sure that the factory settings are altered on your devices when you get them and install them, so they're not on the, otherwise it could be potentially the password could be 1234 as a factory setting, but obviously that's not a secure password. So certainly, and Neighbourhood Watch, and I'm sure yourselves would encourage everyone when they purchase things that are connected to the internet to make sure they're not on the standard settings, the factory settings, but to kind of introduce passwords.
So we don't allow any, yeah.
And certainly we're
we don't allow standard passwords.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, I think that's a really profoundly important thing, because those products that do require someone then to change them, which I think is, adds a layer of insecurity, which I think is, and certainly Neighbourhood Watch has been advocating for some time that organisations make sure that there are specific passwords for products rather than a standard one, because that makes it easier to hack. And I think it's really reassuring that your products that don't have standard passwords. I think that's really reassuring. I think. I mean, the other thing in terms of people purchasing products and things, obviously, Which is a really good. We all trust Which as an organisation. I mean, is that something? Has Which had anything to do with ERA?
Yeah, so we were asked to submit our products to Which for them to compare us to the other providers out there, and we actually got the Which Best Buy Award on our ERA Protect Core Kit, which is our alarm system with a few sensors, which is a really good system to have that you can start with, and then you can add sensors to that as and when you want.
Great,
and we compared very well with the other ones out there.
Right, great. So, are there for the ERA products? Are there any extra costs that we haven't that aren't visible? Subscriptions or those kind of things, or how does that work?
So as a basic system, the alarm system will work as a network-based system. So as long as it's connected to your internet router and there is no interruption to your internet supply, if your alarm is armed or triggered, or you can arm it and disarm it from wherever you are, then that will work. If you wanted the full feature set that's available, which is things like SIM backup. We also have automated phone calling, so you can actually get a phone call if your alarm is triggered as well. Or if you want the top end system, which is our professional monitoring product as well, there are costs available. We've made sure that we are competitive with what's out there. Prices start at £8 per month or £80 per year. That's for our Plus service, and our professional monitoring service, for which you also need a camera, at least one camera, is £15 a month or £150 for the year. But what the professional monitoring service gives you is, if your alarm is triggered, we have an accredited partner who is able to have 20 minutes access to the alarm trigger information. They can actually view your videos for the alarm trigger, and if they can actually see someone breaking into the property, they will call the police to get them out there to make your property safe as well.
Okay, that's great, Sumier. Thank you. I mean, we've got some questions. Just going to go through before I come back to you. I'll come back to you for the answers, but come back in some of the questions that have come through around, what would happen if there was a power cut that lasts. I mean, we've had storms certainly down in the West Country, a few weeks ago, and power lines going down. I mean, what happens with smart security when there's a power cut?
So for our alarm system, the hub itself has a built-in battery. So if there is a power cut and it goes on, that battery will power the alarm system for up to 8 hours. Unfortunately for the cameras, because they are connected to a mains power supply, if there is a power cut, that would bring the cameras offline, but your alarm system would stay online for up to 8 hours. And again, if you've got the Protect Plus or Protect Premium, that will also get you the SIM backup service. So it would still keep your alarm connected to our platform, which means we're still able to notify you that, if the alarm is triggered.
Okay. And of course, even if there's an alarm, and that doesn't stop door locks, window locks, and everything else being locked. If there's a power cut, that won't affect obviously the security of the house. It will just be the smart bit of it would go down for the period for a period beyond the battery backup. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I just saw one of the comments from Harry, which just made me laugh. Just on average, I know obviously with the storms and everything, some people's power was out for quite a while. On average, a power cut usually lasts around 2 to 3 hours on average. Obviously, recently we've had some storms, which has taken us out of the average. But, in normal scenarios, power cuts don't usually last as long as they have been recently for some people.
Yeah, of course, that's absolutely fine. I mean, we've dealt with it a bit, and in terms of being hacked, and I think that's the way to reduce that, as we've said, is around making sure that there are good and secure passwords on everything you use that is part of the internet thing. So your smart speakers, as well as your smart security system. We did have a question about whether it would be sensible to have the security on a separate router and on a separate system. So I don't know if you have got a view on that, or if that's a good idea.
With you mean like Wi-Fi, have different Wi-Fi networks and things like that?
Yes.
You can. I mean, with our alarm system itself is, because it's connected directly to the router, it doesn't rely on any Wi-Fi connection anyway. So for the alarm and the sensors that connect to the hub, it doesn't use your internet Wi-Fi. It's literally using your fixed line from the internet. For cameras, they do connect to Wi-Fi. You can connect them onto their own network if you want. There are a number of routers available which do allow you to have bespoke networks coming off that. It all depends on the end user at the end of the day, because some people are very technical, so they're able to have separate networks and they're able to specify how much of the internet that particular device will use. But out of the box, they are designed to work with the various other devices that will connect to an end user's Wi-Fi network without any impact.
Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. We have another query about whether ERA smart security devices can be linked with other companies' smart security devices, or are they I'm not quite sure. Can they mix and match, or are they more bespoke?
So at the moment is a bespoke system. So it's all designed to work within the ERA Protect ecosystem. That's not to say that the other systems out there don't have capabilities of working with the other protocols that are there. What we are looking at is we are looking at working with various organizations now that are trying to simplify all the various devices to bring them all together. And we are actually looking into how our system can work with the other automation that is out there.
Yeah. Okay. That's
That's
so that might be something
that's going to come in.
Yeah. So is there, I mean, can Era, if I installed an Era smart security device, would I be able to connect that to other things on part of my internet things like turning on the lights or the radiators or whatever, or that would always be kept separate, or how might that work?
So at the moment that isn't possible, but that's as I mentioned before, we are looking at bringing that into our system. We're hoping towards the middle of this year there is a system called Matter. More and more people will start hearing about it, but they're about to bring out a solution which the various smart providers can start putting into their systems. And what it will actually do is it will actually allow one system to start communicating with other systems. So like your lighting, like your smart lightings, TVs, heating. So as soon as you do one command, it will actually have a knock-on effect to other things. But at the moment, it's not possible.
Can I just ask, I mean, this is just something that's occurred to me, and this isn't that, would that mean then if there was a system or a product that enabled all those different elements of smart stuff, for want of a better phrase, to connect to each other, does that mean that security would be as good as the weakest link then in terms of external kind of security? That's what pops into my head. I don't know if that will be the case, or
if without regulation, probably. I think with ourselves, once we start taking part in all these different automation technologies that are on their way, what we'll make sure that it's the strongest part. You don't want any security to go in and think, what is the weakest part of this? What you would do is you would look at everything you've got, see how it fits, and make sure it's the strongest. Because ultimately, we wouldn't want to be held responsible for something breaking. We would want to make sure that we're well away from that.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense, because I think there's a bit of me that, personally speaking, as no expert whatsoever, but I would kind of want my security probably not connected to my smart lights or my fridge or my, just for I don't know, it would feel safer somehow, and it may not be the case. And I guess what you're saying is that Era would work to make sure that it was safe, whatever the connections.
It would be, because at the end of the day, we'd always put the end user in control. It would be up to them whether they wanted to connect to all their lighting and things like that. Ultimately, it would be something they would personalize for their own needs.
Yeah, which makes sense. And we've had a question about batteries and about. I mean, you mentioned that the alarm would be hardwired, but the I guess the cameras may not be, and about how long batteries last, or whether they can be hardwired.
So the cameras that we sell as part of Era Protect are mains powered, so there is no battery connection on the cameras. The sensors that we have for the alarm system are battery operated, so they use the motion sensor and the door window access sensor. They use CR123A batteries, which are the camera type batteries that used to be commonplace. We expect them to last sort of between 2 to 3 years. The external siren uses lithium batteries, which are specifically for that siren, and we expect those to last up to 4 years.
Right. So yeah, a good long time before they need to be replaced. That's fine. We've had one interesting question about whether if it's possible to be sent a message via text if something's happened on your system if you haven't got Wi-Fi.
If you haven't got Wi-Fi,
sorry, if you're not connected to the internet. Sorry, if you're not connected, if you're away from an internet provider, whether it be possible to get a kind of text message, because obviously they've got different coverage. I didn't ask that very well to start with. Sorry.
Yeah. So if the alarm, if you've got the Protect Plus or Plus Premium plans, then as I mentioned before, you can have automated phone calls, or you can set that up to send text messages to 2 users to let you know if the alarm's been triggered as well. The other thing with the Plus plan as well is that if the internet goes down for whatever reason, we would notify the person that they have gone onto the SIM service, so they will know themselves that there's potentially an internet issue. And also, if it goes to battery backup, it will tell you as well that you've gone to battery backup. So it's actually letting you know a few other issues that you may be having.
Okay, yeah, no, that's really interesting. Thank you. I mean, we've also had a question coming in about sheds, whether whether there could be that sheds could be included as part of an ERA smart security system.
Yeah, you can put a PIR sensor or a door window sensor in your shed. The sensors themselves, we obviously measure everything line of sight. They do work between 100 to 150 meters away from the hub. So as long as it's not a massive distance away from the hub, it will work as part of that solution.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. That's useful. We've had a couple of questions around I guess burglars trying to get in and whether they cut the wire linking to any of the products. Which, I guess, if there are external wires, that's a possibility. Would that work in terms of cutting off bits of the system?
So if they cut the internet, and you had the plan, then the SIM card would activate, so it would keep the alarm online. Obviously, if the internet was cut, the cameras would go offline. From a point of view of if they came in and disconnected the power to the hub or cut the wire to the hub again, because there is that battery backup, that would keep the alarm connected to our system, which means we can still notify you of the alarm being activated. And even if they thought that they'd take the external siren down, the external siren has also got a tamper protection on there. So even if that was pulled off the wall, or someone thought they'd be very clever, take the front cover off, that tamper would still activate and it would still trigger the alarm.
Right. Okay. No, that's reassuring. Thank you. Well, I guess you've covered this a bit with some of the things, but I guess there are kind of pros and cons with wired or unwired elements of the system. I mean, you mentioned that the alarm and the cameras are connected to the power supply, so that's not particularly an issue. But are there other pros and cons in terms of wired or unwired systems?
I think a lot of people want the flexibility where they don't want someone to have to come in to drill holes into their walls or to have to find cavities to pass all the wiring through. As it moves on, I think more and more things are literally going to be battery powered and have that wireless element, because you could be in a rental property as well, which means you can have these stuck up for a while. And if you're moving, you can actually take your alarm and your sensors with you. You don't have to leave them behind.
Yeah, no, that
so as more and more things, yeah.
I think, as you say, particularly for people renting houses, or even if you own your own home, people do move, and they're in the same way you take your stereo with you, you probably want to take your, if you can, you want to take your smart security system with you as well.
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, just got a query about the data and where the data is held, so where the recordings are held. I mean, you were really clear about how that they're encrypted when they're transmitted, but where are they stored? The kind of video recordings or those sort of things.
So we have our own ERA Protect platform, which is hosted within the UK and Ireland. So we have various locations which to ensure that there's no loss of data. But everything we host is all GDPR compliant, and also, as I mentioned before, did pass the BSI Internet of Things criteria as well.
Yeah, which
we
is
are
huge.
a UK and Ireland, but we are a UK and Irish-based company. We don't have anything else that goes offshore to anywhere else.
Right. Yeah. Again, like that, I think that's really. We've had one quite specific question just around if someone's gate is about 100 foot from the nearest electrical point, what would be the best solution? I'm guessing that would obviously be some sort of battery powered device which could connect to the system.
It would be. I mean, for when you say for a gate, what sort of thing are they asking?
It just says the question is, yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that's either an alarm or a camera to cover that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, depending on what sort of automation you wanted, you're potentially looking at getting a professional company in to be able to quote you for that, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you covered this earlier, that the ERA smart systems can be used without monitoring by ERA. It depends on which level of service you're purchasing, doesn't that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So if you can go for the basic, which you can control yourself.
Yeah. So we've had a specific question about who the installer of the various smart services Era offer. I mean, and do you just want to go into part of that in terms of the quality of your approved installers, how that kind of works?
Yeah, so for ourselves, we don't actually hire any installers directly. What we've done in the past is we've hosted training sessions where we have shown installers, independent installers, how to use our systems, how to install them for a resident. And before we actually make them an Era approved installer, is we make sure that we've got a valid public liability insurance from them, to show that if anything went wrong, that they would be covered. And we also ensure that they do pass disclosure as well.
Right. Yeah, because we did have a couple of questions in terms of what if the installer's a burglar. So I think, yeah, I mean, to be fair to Era and anyone else, it sounds like you've done as many checks as you possibly can to prevent that.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had quite a specific question around how many phones can be linked into a security camera. Because I guess for myself, I've got an elderly mother, and I would quite like to, and I would, I guess, like to be able to see what's happening on my system as well as my mum's, because I would be worrying about her. Is that sort of thing possible?
It is possible. So once an account's been created, you can actually assign what we call guest users, and you can actually specify what parts of your system they have access to. So they can have access to the alarm, they can have access to the cameras, or one or the other. And you can have as many of those guest users as you want. And the admin user can take guest users off the system as and when they want to as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, that's helpful, because I think for myself and many people, that's part of the real upside of smart security. If we've got either anybody who's somewhat vulnerable, or being able to give access to somebody else is really important, to be able to look after those who are more vulnerable. That's helpful, Sumier. Thank you. We've had a couple of queries just around the sensors for windows and doors, and about whether there's the possibility, if they're screwed into doors and windows, if that would then invalidate the warranty on the door or window. I don't know if that's something you're able to answer, or if that's on a case by case, or.
I wouldn't be able to answer questions directly on the warranty, because that all depends on what the warranty for that particular door or window had from the manufacturer. But from our sensors point of view, our sensors, both the PIR motion sensor or the door window sensor, can be attached to the to where you want it with screws, if you wanted to not stick them. Sorry.
Right. So yes, there will be differences in terms of the warranty on different doors and windows. And I guess the bit will be to make sure that to contact the manufacturers or the installers of those and around the system or the devices that are being installed, to make sure that you don't invalidate things, but they still work.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
We've had a specific question around, does the Era on the and I guess this will be the installers that cover the whole of the UK, or if there are areas that aren't covered in the UK?
So as far as I'm aware, so from the installers that we've worked with in the past and that we've trained, I know we have had installers come to us actually from the Scottish Highlands, and they have actually come to us all the way from Cornwall. So I'm pretty sure that we have actually got installers that would actually cover every part of the UK. I've not had anybody come back to me since I've been here to say that they contacted an installer that wasn't able to install an alarm system for them.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. We've this is just I know there's been a couple of questions on this around the recording for this evening's webinar, just so we can avoid more people asking. Just that a recording of this webinar will be made available to everyone, the participants that have been in it, and if there are people that weren't able to join, we will make it available after. And the video that will be in the next couple of days, so that will come out. And I'm just checking. I think as I'm going through the questions that people have asked, I think we've covered most of the questions that have been asked. I'm just going to have a quick kind of go through. I mean, there is a question which you might not be able to answer, and feel free to say I can't really answer that. That's something people will need to decide for themselves. But how Era compares to Ring? Well, I guess that's a tricky question for you to answer, Sumier, given that you work for Era.
It's a loaded question. I think it's a bit like me growing up, a vacuum cleaner is a Hoover, but now the people nowadays will call it a Dyson. So it's a bit like the doorbell. most people will have a lot of people have a smart video doorbell. Probably isn't made by Ring, but they'll call it a Ring doorbell because it's just become the norm. Now, I think the systems out there, some of them are very similar, and some of them will support end users in different ways. From my point of view and what we do at Era, I'm proud to say that because of the support we give and the reviews we get from customer base, we have got a system that easily compares to every single smart system that's out there. And like anything else, we're going to be better in some areas, and we might not be as good, and we'll be doing everything we can to keep making our system better.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess we've had a couple of questions have come through. One is around how the software on your devices, how often are they updated, and how that works.
So a lot of our software. So since we've launched Era Protect, we've done probably about 6 firmware updates to all of our devices as we improve the functionality of them. But there's a lot of improvements that we do that an end user won't see, and that will be to our platform. They are things that we do behind the scenes. We are monitoring our platform 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we will introduce updates and things like that that won't have any impact to the service, but it just means that we're able to do them without impacting the end user as well. And we don't take the system offline, because there's nothing worse than having an online alarm system and you then have to notify customers that you've got to take it offline while you're doing something. Everything we've done so far and everything we want to do, we'll always make sure that there's no loss of service.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's really reassuring. Thank you. We've had a couple of questions around costs, and I don't know if that's something that you want to go into specifically, Sumier. Or I mean, obviously, all the costs and things are available on your website and on the links and those kind of things. But I don't know if that's something that you want to touch on at all.
So, from our alarm system point of view, with some sensors and things like that, our alarm systems start at the £250 mark, and our cameras. The indoor camera is currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's about £49. And the outdoor camera is £59, and our floodlight camera is £99. Ultimately, depending on what the end user wants to buy, they can always call us, and we can put a package together for them and make sure that it is value for money for them as well.
Okay, that's really helpful, Sumier. Thank you. I'm very aware of the time, and we're getting towards the end of the time, so I don't know if people have got some last questions to put them in. And we've just had one come in around in which country are Era systems made, which you might have to make a long list of that. I don't know where they are manufactured.
So our systems are designed in the UK. So we have a design and engineering team within the UK that do put all of the designs together for it. The manufacturing does take place in China. It's like a lot of the world at the moment. Manufacturing is done in China, but it is to the highest standard.
That's great. And we've had some questions around Era security systems being endorsed or whatever by Neighbourhood Watch. I mean, we're really clear that Neighbourhood Watch is supported, and we certainly, where things have kite marks or externally verified, then we would endorse them as an organisation, because that's the external. We're obviously not able to do that ourselves, because we wouldn't know something that was high quality or not, so rely on organisations like Kite Marks and BSI and those kind of things for our endorsement of products. So hopefully that answers that for people. I mean, we've had a question come in around keyless locks, and I don't know if that's something that is coming out, or that's something that Era has. I know people are talking about that kind of products now.
Yeah, what I can say about keyless locks is it's an area that we are actively looking at. But like anything else, one thing that we won't do is introduce anything into the market until we're safe, until we're satisfied that it will meet the requirements of the end user, the resident. So we will be entering that market space because it's a growing market space. But all I can say at the moment is just watch this space.
Yeah. I know. Certainly when I've been up to visit Era and your HQ and manufacturing base up in the West Midlands a few times, I think when we've asked questions about the future, I think I've always been reassured that ERA have always said, this is something we're looking at, but until it meets our high standards, we won't be producing something or selling something until it, because you've certainly had very high standards in all the things from the very beginning, smart security locks and everything else, and wanting to make sure that you get to that kind of level. I think Nick has asked a question discounts for Neighbourhood Watch members, and certainly ERA very kindly put some discounts for Neighbourhood Watch users. And if Neighbourhood Watch members want to go onto the Neighbourhood Watch website, which is ourwatch.org.uk, then you'll be able to find out about those discounts. But that's something we'd really encourage people to do, because, as I say, ERA have been partners and sponsors of Neighbourhood Watch for some considerable time, and we're really proud of that. And that's something that, there are benefits, purely practical benefits for that. So I'd encourage people to go onto our website, as I say, ourwatch.org.uk, to find out more about that. We did have one quick question. If there is a particular name of the system that you mentioned that was about £250, Sumier, or has it got a name that someone can ask for?
The 250 system is our, well, actually, that's our, I may have got that wrong, because that's our retail price that we had originally for the starter kit. We're actually selling the 8-piece core kit for £179. Oh, excuse me, 199. Sorry, 199. Yeah. So, sorry, my bad. It's just I've got that many different kits. I need to get the right price.
No problem at all. But it sounds like, the cost change in a way that most people listening will be pleased about, not unpleased about. So I think that's the good thing.
Yeah.
So
ultimately is if any of the listeners, any of the people that view the videos back, as I mentioned before, if there is a particular kit that might not meet their needs and they want a package put together for them, give us a call and we can actually put something together that will be beneficial to the end user.
That's brilliant, Sumier. Thank you, because and I think we can potentially send out links when we send out the when we send out the video, that people will be able to use that when we send that out. So I think that would be really useful. Yeah. Okay, well, I think we've got to the end of our questions, which is a surprise, but that's good. And we've got a few minutes left, so I just really want to thank you, Sumier, for coming onto the webinar and speaking to us this evening and using your expertise. And I'd really like to thank ERA more broadly, in terms of making sure that you're available to give of your time and sponsoring Neighbourhood Watch. I mean, as I said, it's something that the sponsorship and support and partnerships is something we're really proud of, and I think there are really good alignment between Neighbourhood Watch, which is very keen about people feeling secure and communities being more secure. And I know that's something that ERA have been involved with for a long time and are very keen to kind of pursue, making sure that people are safe and feel safe. And I think that's been really helpful.
Thank you very much, and you're welcome.
And I'd also really like to thank everybody who's been on the webinar. I think that's really has been really, really useful. So thank you all for your time. As you can see, what's just come up onto the webinar is a QR code. What we'd really ask you in the world of smart things, we would like you to scan that QR. So if you're able just to take a photo of the QR code and scan it on your smartphones, you'll be able to fill in a feedback link. It's really useful the way that we do these webinars. We really appreciate people's feedback, what we can do, what went well, what went less well, what we could do more of. If there are subjects that you think it would be useful for us to cover in more detail on another webinar in the future, those sort of comments are really valuable to us. We'd really, really, really welcome your feedback. But as I say, we are finishing on time, which is quite an achievement for me, because often I seem to manage to run over. So once again, a big thank you to ERA, and particularly to Sumier, and for everybody who's been on this webinar. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.